Hello and welcome to part 3 of Superman in Media. This video will detail the history of the first two big budget Superman films. Ideas for a Superman film were thrown around since The Adventures of Superman went off the air in 1958. In 1974, Ilya Salkind finally was able to buy the Superman rights from DC Comics. Along with his father Alexander Salkind and Pierre Spengler, they set about making their film. Celebrities such as Muhammad Ali, Al Pacino, James Caan, Steve McQueen, Clint Eastwood and Dustin Hoffman were all considered for roles and even approved by DC as potential Clark Kent and Superman actors. The producers felt it best that Superman and its sequel Superman 2 be shot back to back, so they made a negative pickup deal with Warner Brothers. Writer William Goldman was approached to write the screenplay, but Ilya Salkind hired Alfred Bester. Thinking Bester wasn't famous enough of a screenwriter, Alexander hired Mario Puzo, writer of The Godfather. Francis Ford Coppola, William Friedkin, Richard Lester, Peter Yates, John Gillerman, Ronald Neame and Sam Peckinpah were all considered for directorial duties. Sam Peckinpah was removed when, while in a meeting with the Salkinds, he produced a gun. George Lucas also turned down an offer to direct as he was busy with Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. The search for a director continued, with Ilya wanting to contact Steven Spielberg, but missed his chance when Spielberg followed his hit movie Jaws with Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Eventually, Guy Hamilton was hired as director, with Mario Puzo producing a massive 500-page script for Superman and Superman 2. The script saw Clark Kent as a television reporter. In early 1975, screen legend Marlon Brando signed on as Jor-El, Superman's biological father. His salary was a whopping $3.7 million as well as 11.75% of the total box office grosses, which netted him a massive $19 million. Brando shocked the Salkinds when in their first meeting he suggested that Jor-El be a green suitcase or a bagel. Although Puzo had written a solid script, Robert Benton and David Newman were brought in to polish it up. Production began in Italy, where sets and flying tests were done but were unsuccessful. Production was moved to England after Marlon Brando was unable to travel to Italy, thanks to an outstanding warrant for his arrest. Richard Donner was eventually brought on as director after Guy Hamilton had to leave due to tax purposes. Donner was dissatisfied with the campy tone to the script and brought in Tom Mankiewicz to rewrite. Bumping the script down to 110 pages, Tom conceived such ideas as each Kryptonian family wearing a different symbol to denote their houses. After the WGA refused to give him a writing credit, Richard Donner gave Tom a creative consultant credit on the film. Donner then set out to cast his Superman, looking at actors like Robert Redford, Burt Reynolds, Sylvester Stallone, and Paul Newman. After 200 auditions, they decided to go with an unknown actor, Christopher Reeve. During his screen test, Reeve was told to wear a muscle suit, but refused, rather undergoing physical exercise headed by Darth Vader body actor David Prowse. Jeff East was also brought in to play young Clark Kent, but his voice was overdubbed by Reeves and he underwent 4 hours of makeup to make himself look more like Reeves. Principal photography began in 1977 at Pinewood Studios, England. The film was heralded as the most expensive movie made at that point. Filming lasted 19 months, thanks to Superman 1 and 2 shooting back to back, and production problems arising. Upon seeing the fantastic scenes filmed on the Krypton set, WB decided to distribute the film outside of the US. New York doubled as Metropolis and Smallville was filmed in parts of Alberta, Canada. During production, Donner clashed with the Salkinds concerning the budget, since Donner never received any schedules or budget papers. Richard Lester was brought in to mediate relations between Donner and the Salkinds. Lester was also brought in as a type of redundancy to Donner. Should he fail, Lester could move into his role as director. Superman 2 production stopped during this time to focus on the first film, since if the first film was a bomb, they would not finish the second one. Superman is well known for its large-scale visual effects, all of which were created before the digital age. Along with the use of practical effects, miniatures, and slow-mo, blue screen was also used, requiring the Superman suit to be made a much darker blue, as well as a slight greenish hue suit for use with the blue screen's flying scenes. Originally, Jerry Goldsmith was brought in to score the film, having worked with Donner previously on The Omen. Having to drop out due to scheduling conflicts, John Williams was hired. The music was one of the last pieces to come into place near the end of the film production. Williams likes that the film didn't take itself too seriously and had a type of theatrical camp to it. Superman is broken into 3 sections, each with a distinct theme. Science fiction is the first section, detailing Krypton and Kal-El's arrival to Earth. The second segment is set in Smallville and has a Norman Rockwell-esque atmosphere to it. And the third segment, the largest segment, set in Metropolis, relied on traditional cinematic drama and subtle humor. Originally set to be released on the 40th anniversary of Action Comics issue 1, the film was delayed due to production problems. Premiering on December 10, 1978, the film grossed $134 million at the US box office and $166 million worldwide, making it the second highest grossing film of 1978, coming just in behind Grease, and the 6th highest grossing film of all time in its theatrical run. It was also the most successful film Warner Bros. Had at the time. Superman creators Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster gave the film a glowing review, Shuster saying that he was delighted to see Superman on screen and that Chris Reeve was such a delight to watch and had the right touch of humor. Superman was nominated for 3 Academy Awards for Best Editing, Best Music and Best Sound Mixing, and received a Special Achievement Academy Award for Visual Effects. Because of Superman going into production prior to the release of Star Wars and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, some believe that these 3 films collectively launched the re-emergence of large-scale sci-fi films in the 1980s. With Superman being a resounding success, the Salkins saw fit to continue with Superman 2, without Richard Donner however, as the director had already publicly criticized them during press tours. Margot Kidder, who portrayed Lois Lane, also voiced her opinion on the producers, prompting them to turn her role in Superman 3 into a cameo. The decision to replace Donner was quite controversial amongst the cast and crew, resulting in many cast and crew, including Gene Hackman, who portrayed Lex Luthor, not to return to finish the film. Richard Lester was brought on as director, and on the first day of production, set designer John Barry collapsed and passed away from meningitis. 2 months later, production resumed with a script rewritten by David and Leslie Newman. The script included new scenes such as the Paris opening of the film and Clark rescuing Lois at Niagara Falls. Due to the guidelines of the DGA, Lester was forced to reshoot several scenes Donner had already completed, so to receive a full directorial credit. Lester's approach was more slapstick and lighter, but was considered coherent, even though some scenes barely matched with Donner's original scenes. In the years since the film's release, multiple cuts have been released, ranging from international cuts to special editions. One cut fans consider the real Superman 2 is the Richard Donner cut. Released in 2006, Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, follows directly after Superman the movie, using the original Superman 2 script. The cut restores several deleted scenes, including all of Marlon Brando's footage and Lois trying to prove that Clark is Superman. The 2 films are linked together by showing that one of the nuclear missiles Superman throws into space from Superman the movie exploded, shattering the Phantom Zone prism that held General Zod and his subordinates, allowing them to head to Earth and try and conquer it. Unlike Superman the movie, Superman 2 didn't open simultaneously around the world, instead having staggering release dates in an attempt to maximize profits at the box office. The film was reviewed well, but most saw the slapstick comedy and dated effects take a toll on the film. In 2006, Richard Donner, working with DC Comics writer Jeff Johns, incorporated elements from his script into the Last Son story arc. So I've made it no secret that I think that Superman and Superman 2 are the best Superman has been in film, and probably will be for quite some time. Even 30 years on, the messages they had in those movies and the characterizations they had in those movies still stand the test of time, that the way Christopher Reeve played Superman was absolutely perfect. It's the most comic accurate I've ever seen a character play. He's got this charm, and the thing about Superman is that Superman's always been to me this character who you could just approach and just talk to, and he's not this big intimidating guy with all these muscles that, you know, you're scared to go near. He's just guy just you want to go talk to, and that's what Christopher Reeve brought to the character. You know, you just see him standing there in the street or something, and you can just like go up and talk with him and everything. Just everything about the character and all the characters in this. You know, Lois Lane was fantastic. She was the reporter that like goes to get a story anyway how, especially in the first one, how she actually kind of dies and Superman does that whole cool thing where he reverses time. Like that's something that's so comic bookish. You know, you don't see that in movies nowadays. You know, he reverses time by flying around the earth in the opposite direction as that it spins. That's like so comic bookish. And yeah, it was absolutely fantastic movie. You know, Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor is awesome. I absolutely love he plays the whole the one that was in the 70s and 80s, how he's like some sort of like tycoon, sort of businessman tycoon, and sort of mustache twirling sort of tycoon. Again, like in the later movies like Superman Returns, Kevin Spacey sort of brought that as well, since that movie is sort of a carry-on from this. And also we got Michael Rosenbaum as Lex in Smallville, and he sort of did the same thing as well, but was a bit more like hard-edged. But Gene Hackman was absolutely fantastic in this, and just the supporting cast around him, like Jimmy Olsen was fantastic because he was just like a kid with a camera doing his job and everything, and getting yelled at by Perry White and everything. But yeah, there's just something about these movies that just stand the test of time, and I think it is that whole tagline they had for the movie, which was "You will believe a man could fly." Because like when you watch this, you think like that is Superman, and then there's also like the music, the John Williams music. Like even nowadays, like if you were to go to someone and say like, when you think of Superman, what do you hear? And I give you like 100% that they will like say the Superman theme by John Williams, or like if they don't know it, they'll like sort of sing it a little bit. But it just stands the test of time. Like that is like nowadays all the music for like these superheroes are all like drums and like really bassy and like kind of techno-ish and everything. They're not really grand and like heroic. I think the closest one that came to it so far has been the one from Captain America, the First Avenger. That one sounded grand and sort of soldiery and everything, that fit the character really well, but none have really gotten to that level of like heroic like build up and everything, like when you hear that John Williams thing, and it's absolutely fantastic. Everything about this movie is fantastic. Like the effects are obviously dated nowadays, they're 30 years old, but like at the time they were groundbreaking, and like when I watched it when I was younger, they were absolutely fantastic. I thought they were great, and they still really are. They still have like that charm about them. Same with like how Star Wars, like how they use like practical miniature effects and all that. They still stand the test of time as well. You know, there's a charm to them. It's really hard to like pinpoint like all the reasons why I like this movie. There's just so many reasons. And Superman 2 is absolutely fantastic as well. And as I said before, like fans consider the Richard Donner cut the actual cut of the movie, and I do as well, since you know he basically filmed 90% of that movie before he was fired. So I think that, you know, he deserves to have that movie. And the Richard Lester version is pretty cool, but as people have said, it's a bit slapstick and all that, and a bit more campy. But it kind of goes into that whole 1960s, you know, Batman and Robin, Batman the TV shows, you know, comedy sort of route. I don't particularly like that. But the Richard Donner cut had like that perfect mix. It had, you know, some comedy, but it was good comedy. They didn't like push it too far and just keep like redoing those jokes and everything. I thought it was great. But yeah, absolutely fantastic films. I don't know anyone who hasn't seen them, but like if you haven't seen them, definitely watch them. They're absolutely fantastic, and they make everyone's list of the top like 10 superhero films, you know, ever made. You know, it's on my top 10. It's actually in my top 5. But yeah, absolutely fantastic films, and yeah, they're just going to stand the test of time until someone makes a absolutely comic accurate Superman. And it's not really about like, yeah, you can get the script completely right and like have it absolutely like a comic and everything. It's all about who you cast as Superman, really. And they really won out with Christopher Reeves. He just had this charm to him that it was like Superman. He was just like a guy that you could talk to, and he was really kind and everything, and it was charismatic as well. And like when he'd do the smile and wave and everything at the end of the movies, you know, that's Superman there. Well, thank you for joining me for another part of Superman in Media. Definitely look out for the next couple of parts, which will detail the other 2 Superman movies that were made during the 80s, the ones that aren't particularly too good. And I'll get to them when I get to them. They're definitely something I really want to talk about. But yeah, thank you for joining me, and keep an eye out for more videos here on Fortress of Solitude.